And we're on. Hi, everybody. Welcome to everybody watching. We already have a comment, which is awesome.
Hey, April.
Thanks, everyone, for tuning in for this live stream. In this coaching call, we are going to answer your questions. I have a few that came through my Patreon, and then I had a couple that came through on the YouTube channel as well. So, Coach Paul is going to answer them, and I'm going to, the ones that were addressed to me, I'll pitch in as well. So, yeah, why don't you introduce yourself, Coach?
Sure. Sure, yeah. My name's Paul. I am a RRCA certified running coach. I'm also a YouTuber. I'm over on the Dev Runner channel. And I am very proud to be Susie's coach. So, yeah, hopefully we can answer some questions for Susie and pump up her confidence for the upcoming Wine Glass Marathon. And along the way, I'd really consider it a win if we could answer some questions for some of your viewers as well, Susie.
Yeah, thank you for doing so. So, I am a little bit under the weather, and as the days progressing, I'm feeling more under the weather. Like I was texting you after the long run, and I took a nap and I woke up worse than I before
Oh
laying down.
no.
So yeah, we'll see how this ends. I'm super congested. I don't sound congested at all, I don't think, but I'm congested.
No, I don't hear it in your voice.
Yeah. Well, that I guess that's it. Let me see if I can read April's comments. Hello, Susie and Paul. I'm on the road again. She is on the road again. She was on the road the time we live streamed, but hoping to catch most of it. Hope you all had an awesome weekend. We hope you had an awesome weekend too, April. And then Carol, she's actually one of my Patreons, and she asked questions on my Patreon. So we'll answer the questions towards the end of the live stream.
Cool.
Very cool. So how was your run today, Paul? Because I know you had 18 miles on the books.
Yeah, for me it was a good day. It was slightly milder temperatures down here in the south, so I took advantage of it and managed to run this 18 miler like 3.5 minutes faster than the one last week. So
Oh
I'm
wow.
happy.
I'm so jealous. Yeah. So I guess we'll catch up people with what happened today. So I had a 14 miler and I had to do three 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 portions of 2 miles. My brain is not really fully working today. 2 miles at marathon pace, 1 mile floating, 2 miles marathon pace, 1 mile floating, 2 miles marathon pace, 1 mile floating, and then the cool down, the warm down, and the cool down. And I called it off at 11.8. Like I just could not.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you texted me after you were done, I, I was worried. It was almost like uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh. And I realized once you sent me the numbers for the run, like what your splits look like and all that stuff, that, I think I think the main takeaway is that you're starting the burnout from being at the end of a long training cycle is beginning to catch up with you a little bit, but I don't think you're in bad shape. And when I looked at the numbers for your actual on time splits where you were really going for it, amazing.
I know. I just didn't pace myself. So because when I started the run, I wasn't feeling well. Do you know when you're with that mentality of okay, let's get it over with. Let's just
Oh yeah,
like,
oh yeah.
let's just get it done. And I started way too fast. Like the first 2 miles, I looked at the watch a couple times. I was like, I'm going way too fast. I'm gonna pay it later, but let's just get it done. Like I could not. Yeah. Like I usually listen to music or a podcast, and I realized I think it was mile 4. I wasn't listening to anything. Like I
Oh
was just
gotcha.
going. Like I was so like motivated to finish it, but in the pain cave so much, like so like that I was not even like I know I'm not gonna enjoy it. Just let's get it done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gotcha, gotcha. And on those tougher days, those tougher workouts, it's almost a good thing not to listen to music, to kind of get in tune with your body. It makes, instead of being distracted by your favorite song, you're kind of more tuned into this is what feels good right now in my body, this is what's feeling not so great. And it's great to, it's really important, especially for when you're training for longer races, half marathon and upwards, to really know your body. The better you know your body, the better you will run. Let's just keep it simple like that.
Yeah, it was just again, I could not bring myself to do 14. I was at one point I was even like dizzy. It was like, what the heck, what's going on?
Oh boy, oh boy. I wonder if you were a little dehydrated, or how you
No,
came
no,
into this.
it's the
You think it's
cold.
just that there's that bug in your
Yeah,
system? Yeah.
yeah. And I was actually when I was having lunch, I was looking at the clips for the whole week, and I was in the office Friday, and at the end of Friday, I barely had a voice, and I'm in the video saying, "Oh wow, I'm losing my voice. What's going on?" Yeah, and I think
Gotcha.
that was the beginning of it. So
Gotcha. 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 Okay.
yeah,
So I mean,
so
yeah.
it's nothing major. I think it's just that summer I feel pressure like in my ears and like here, so it's not dehydration. Because if
Yeah.
you're dehydrated, you might have like a you can get a headache, but it's pressure, like it's internal, like in my throat, in
Gotcha.
my
Gotcha.
ears, in
Okay.
my
Well,
here.
I mean,
So
the good news is tomorrow's a rest day, so hopefully you can manage some extra sleep and stuff, and hopefully
I'm
push through
ready.
it.
I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
So Joe is saying hello, Susie, and I know Joe is running. You're running a lot of races, Joe, right? He's running two halves and something else. He's running a lot of races.
Oh wow, super cool.
Yeah, and Lori's here too. Lori's
Hey, Lori.
another one of my patrons, and we have a question from her as well. Hello,
Okay.
Susie and Paul. So glad to see you all and learned much from you both. Good to hear about your training, Susie. So Lori is actually training to qualify for Boston as well. She has a coach.
Oh, rock on.
Yeah, and she is. I think her plan is to do a half first, kind of what you and I did.
I was gonna say, yeah, sounds familiar.
Yeah, and then after that half, she's going to tackle a marathon. So I
Very
guess
cool.
April next year. Did
Now,
you
Lori,
decide
is
which?
this going to be your first BQ, or you're just trying to build back? Or I'd be really curious if you could leave that in the comments.
I'm curious about that as well. Yeah, and I don't know if she decided she just has her mind set on a half or not, or for that fast half. So
Gotcha.
I know that she still has like me, like she's not super close. It's not a 5 minute,
Gotcha.
qualifying.
Gotcha.
Like,
Gotcha.
it's more than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're building your base for the first time, Lori. Is what it sounds like. It sounds very, very similar to what Susie's up against. Where I think the first time that Susie, the first training block that we went into together, working together, I think was much more of a aggressive approach that we took to work together to try to get you to just take off gigantic chunks of time and get you as close to a BQ as possible as soon as possible. And I think we realized along the way, probably halfway through the your last half marathon training cycle, where we started to play around with where we were placing certain workouts and what works better for you, your schedule, and what gives your body the chance to recover better. And I think I think we found a sweet spot. I mean, we're a little bit of a rough patch, like today, but I think that has much more to do with what's going on with the cold in your system than it does with burnout. I think we've found a really nice place, and
Yeah, I agree.
you know,
And the I think this is the best training blog I've ever had. I don't remember a training blog just because I was trying to think about a run that I missed. Don't
mhm.
think I've missed any runs this training block. Like
Yeah, I
not
don't think
even an
so. I
easy
think you've
run.
been right on it.
Yeah. So this is the first time I think that I cut something short. I think I cut something short like towards the beginning of the training block at some
Yeah,
point.
and it's to me insignificant because number one, you're like I said earlier, your on times when you were doing the 3 by 2 miles at marathon pace. first of all, you ran 3 of those miles faster than marathon pace, well
I
better
know.
than marathon pace, and so for you to walk away with 2 miles that you had to cut off at the end, I see that from a coaching point of view. I see that as a smart move. Like, there's no point in pushing yourself to the point of injury, of just completely burning your body out, and where you're not going to be able to come back tomorrow or Tuesday when you run again. Um, it was a smart move, and your on times were just really aggressive, really they look solid. So
Yeah, I know. I was so I was going around the house because I've been one thing that this training block I haven't been able to really manage, and I don't know why. So it's never really changed in my life. I've been using the Nathan Camelback. I've owned it almost 7 years. Like I bought it when I started running long runs,
yeah,
and that was very early on because I ran a 10K and then immediately afterwards I ran a half marathon. So like I was running long runs pretty quickly. I've never chased. Well, this thing is chasing me. Like it's never like it's going out of style. I don't understand. But then I'm chasing
well,
in other places, and it's like, what is going on with me? Like I do not understand why I'm chasing like in weird places.
it could be a couple of things. Number one, this is a really hot summer, and when you're
Well,
sweating that much more, unless you're really well covered with Vaseline or whatever your favorite thing is, um, it's going to happen. And the second thing that comes to mind is it may be fitting you a little bit looser now, because if you're getting a little bit of bounce and a little bit of, if it's not as close to your body as you're used to, you could just be getting chafing from that, because you're really leaning down and you're really getting muscular, in the last this throughout this training block. It's noticeable just how much just more ripped you look. So
I know it's really interesting because when I use, like I have these. So for Christmas last year, I thought, well, this is the perfect opportunity to put it on my wish list. So I got this super fancy, you know, scale, and it measures the amount of muscle. It's not like substantially, it's a little bit, like more muscle than I used to have, but it's not like I can't hear people say, "Oh, I put 10 pounds of muscle." It's nothing like that. I think it's like 1 pound of muscle or something. It's like, how can the difference be so like? Because I know, and I think because I see myself every single day,
mhm.
I'm bound to notice it less, I think, than other people, because other people see the videos like every week, and then I think it's more noticeable. But I see myself every day in front of the mirror, so and I notice it. It's like, oh wow, I'm getting ripped. But then I use the scale, and it's like, why is this not like, I don't know, like more noticeable? It's just weird.
Yeah, well, I mean, you also have to keep in mind that you know first of all, gaining 10 pounds of muscle, I got to go back to that point. Like, that takes a long time. Like,
And some people
that
do
takes a
it. It's like
long
10
time. Like,
pounds of muscle. Like,
yeah, 10 pounds of muscle takes like over a year to put on for anybody. I don't care who you are, but um, you also have to keep in mind that a pound of muscle is really dense and a really small, like, compared to the amount of physical space that muscle takes up compared to fat. It's
right, that is true. Yeah.
far less volume, I guess, is the point I'm trying to say. So it's easy to weigh more and look way smaller when you're strong. So
I don't know that I don't know. Clothes fit different. Not that I care about how clothes fit, but they fit different. Like I'm wearing stuff that I used to wear last year, 2 years ago, and it's like, oh, they fit different. So, but it's
yeah,
not a major. But like physically, like I see it. Like I see it in my arms. Obviously the core, but I've been doing so much core because someone told me to do a lot of core. I've been doing core nonstop since December, I
yeah,
think, or
it's awesome.
November. When
It's
did you
awesome.
when did you tell me you're like you need to do more core? And I was like, okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, I
So
mean, the
whenever
big
that
thing
was.
is, I mean, I've seen it help you. It has nothing to do. Everybody who's watching or will watch this, core is important not just because of it's nice to have a six pack. but but if it allows you to maintain good form throughout your runs, and when you're getting into the latter miles of a marathon or an ultra, that's what saves you. That's what allows you to maintain good form. Because as soon as you're running with bad form, your injury risk goes way up. Your your running economy goes way down if you're not running with good form, and that matters because when you've burnt through most of your glycogen in the later stages of a race, and if you're starting to hunch over because of bad form, because your core isn't strong enough to hold you up anymore, yeah, you have to work harder. You have to use more fuel just to maintain, just to try to get to that finish line. And none of that is good news. I mean, everybody feels terrible in the last stages of a marathon or an ultra, and if you can save yourself a few calories here and there just by not having to work as hard to hold your body up, you know, that's nothing but good news. So, yeah. Plus, I don't want to get too deep into the whole core diatribe, but
Oh, you can. And people have been asking actually, like even on Instagram, I got a comment the other day asking about like, what are you doing? Which is this, it's not sick. I think core is one of those things that the more, I think other parts of your body, because the muscles are bigger, like if you're doing like, if you want to like get a bigger booty or, like your quads or, because they're so big, you need so much effort to really build on those, I
hmm.
think. But your core, it's just that it's all these little muscles that are like intertwined. And I think just having a routine that's maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes every other day, it gets you so far.
Oh, exactly. That's a great place to start, is like every other day, and then eventually try to build it. I usually have people start with 3 days, and what I love for people to do is eventually work it so that you're going 5 days in a row, Monday through Friday. Assuming you're doing a long run on the weekend, you give yourself a little break from the core, save your energy for that, and eventually, when by the time 6 months go by, I love to have people just, it's part of their routine. It's like every day, like for me, the only reason I'm so consistent with core is because I literally wake up, hit the floor, I do 25 minutes of core, and it's done before I'm even fully awake, before I have a chance to make excuses of, oh, I better answer my emails for work, or but anything that can get in the way. So um, it's
Yeah,
just a good habit.
and I think it's so important too as you get older, like for your balance. It's just
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
it's
And the other big thing is that people don't realize, like if you're having IT band issues, if you're having runner's knee, if you're having issues with, obviously, with your hip flexors, that's all because your core is weak. People get a pain around their knee, and the last thing they're usually thinking is, "Oh, that's because I'm running with bad form because my core is weak." But that's exactly what causes it. Because as soon as I'm trying to get this angle right on the camera. If you're hunching forward at the waist, that's assuming like that's your butt right there. um, you're putting so much more strain on your leg muscles, everything from your hips and on down, that's the main problem that causes that sort of knee issues. If you're running upright with a lean from your ankles, not from your hips, then all kinds of potential injuries just immediately disappear. So, um, if you want to run more efficiently, faster with less effort, take on a core routine before you worry about adding extra miles to your running. I like to see people running with good form before I see them running 50 plus miles a week, because otherwise you're practicing bad form. I'd rather have you pull back to come back down to 30, 35 miles a week, get a really strong core, send me videos as your coach every couple of weeks, and I promise I'll be able to point out what I'm seeing that's getting better about your form. And once you've got your form rock solid, then let's start building that mileage again, because I know you're far less likely to hurt yourself.
right.
So,
Yeah, it's to me that's it. I have to say it's made a substantial improvement because I used to have. Well, I mentioned this in conversations with you before. Like I used to have my right hip, like the hip flexor,
Yeah,
would bother me. Like not enough to, have me take rest days or anything, but it would bother me. Like it would be like, oh, like it felt like someone was pulling on it.
yeah,
Um, that had never happened anymore. That just doesn't happen anymore.
yeah. And you know
So
what that is? That's actually, if my hand picture is like sort of like a level across your hips. And when you get those kind of hip strains like that, like you're saying, especially on the outside of your glutes and even on the outside of the front of your hips, that's usually because if you don't have a strong core, what's happening as you're running is your hips are going like this. Or if you're stronger on one side of your body than the other, every time you take a step with your left foot, your right hip is dipping. And you can film yourself on a treadmill, and if you see that happening, either this happening with your hips or just constantly just with one side going dipping, that's because your hips, your core, your glutes are not strong enough to hold your that whole section, that midsection, that crux of your body. It's not strong enough to hold you even. And if it's not holding even, you're straining one side or the other or both by constantly having your hips up and down and up and down, and it's putting too much strain on those muscles and those tendons, and that's how you end up with what you used to be victim to, but it seems to have worked itself out.
yeah, it's all, like there's. It's funny because I think it's not a secret. I mean, it's pure science, but I do think the science doesn't work the same. Like there are certain things that are like the anchor of your training, like the core is basic, it's important, improve your form. There's certain things you have to do, but then not every single, obviously, if not, there wouldn't be coaches. Like we all would just work with an off the shelf training plan. I think the plans have to adjust to each individual. And I think that's important. Like some people do better with a lot of miles, and some people do better with less miles and more intensity work. Um,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and of course it depends on what you're going for. You know what I mean? Like if going and going all out on the track on a Tuesday is it's fun. For some people it's a lot of fun, but if you're planning to run a marathon or a 50K or a 50 miler, you're kind of spinning your wheels for nothing.
oh, really? Okay. That's interesting. I love 200 meters, like 200-meter reps. That's my
Yeah,
sweet
yeah.
spot.
No matter what your distance is that you're training towards, some speed work is absolutely necessary. But I mean that top end, that sort of anaerobic type of speed, that VO2 max type of style workout is like there's not much point in doing that if you're trying to break, like a 24-hour, 100 miler. Like there's no need of it. You know what I mean?
Right,
So,
right. That is true.
I see Ben Notley has joined us. Hey Ben,
Hi, Ben.
good to see
He
you, man.
just ran. How long was your trail race? Is it 100? I think it's
Yeah,
100.
he did the 100 mile. It was either I think it was the North Downs way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So
Let's
amazing
see.
performance, by the way.
I know. Yeah. Well, he's in excellent shape. So Lori's saying turning 60 this year and finally ready to go for the BQ for the first time.
Awesome.
It's a similar situation to Susie's. I have a long to qualify, but best chance I've had these thus far with the new age group. Yeah.
Yeah, very cool, Lori. Yeah, I think the big thing, like we were touching on earlier, um, is don't try to go for it all at once. You're not going to go from if you try to go from 0 to 60 in the space of like 18 weeks to go, to try to get that BQ all at once. Most of the time, that's a recipe for injury. I think, and I know Susie and I have had this discussion many, many times, but I tell this to every runner that I work with or any runner that I talk to that asks. You have to think of every training cycle. You're trying to stack them. if you're consistent with your training, if you're not trying too hard and you're not injuring yourself year after year, you bring the benefits of that previous training cycle into the next one. So long as you're not taking these huge breaks, either because of injury or just because you're fed up with running and you don't want to run anymore. But as long as you're like, you finish a race, you give your body a couple of weeks to kind of recharge, to give your mindset a chance to recharge so that you're hungry to run again and you're not just going through the motions and just being psychologically burnt out. And then you immediately get back into it. That fitness from every training cycle stacks. It just keeps growing. So, I mean, the thing to keep in mind is when you're training for your next full, even if you don't get the BQ, absolutely do not allow yourself to get demoralized by that, because every bit of that work is going to carry over into your next training cycle. If you cut 20 minutes off of your current personal best, next time you run that marathon, that is huge. That is something to be celebrated. You can't think of it in terms of, well, maybe I got 20 minutes faster, but I'm still nowhere near my BQ time. Your BQ is on the way. You're getting there. You just have to have the patience to work through 18 weeks. Take your break, recharge, then go maybe do a half marathon or a 10K. Do something to keep it fresh. And those long grinding miles from those marathon training cycles, followed by something a little bit faster and more fun, like a 5K or 10K, and then you get back into another marathon training cycle, it all stacks up. It takes years. It takes, on average, even when we're talking about elite runners, from the time they get into college and they get accepted onto whatever team, it's a full 10 years of training before even elite athletes see what they're truly capable of. You can't come out of year 4 of college as, like a track star and expect to see, turn pro the next year and expect that you're just going to blow away the whole field. It's not going to happen. It's going to take you 4 or 5 more years of hard, consistent work before you really see everything you're truly capable of. So us as just kind of part-time runners, we have to expect exactly the same thing. Just stay hungry. I'm not saying it's going to take you 10 years to get to your BQ, but even if you hit your BQ after 2 or 3 years, I promise you that is not the end of your potential. You are going to continue to improve. Now keep in mind, after that first or 6 or 7 years, those massive chunks of time that you're taking off of your PRs, they're going to start to slow down. Like you're going to suddenly find yourself not saying, I'm going to see if I can take another 15 minutes off of my PR. You're going to be saying, oh, I hope I can get like a minute or a minute and a half faster. And eventually you end up in a place where, unfortunately I am, where you're like, I just need 10 more seconds and maybe I can get my PR. But
I know.
it's diminishing
But
returns, but there's always something to challenge you.
and in theory you get slower with age. So
But
for
I'm
all of
still
us,
waiting to see that. So,
we're all getting older. So in the fact that we are getting a little faster or even staying in the same range, it's good news because usually you
exactly.
slow down. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And as far as that age thing goes, don't don't let that psych you out. Like speaking for myself, I'm 54 years old now, and what was it? Back in May, I came in like 25 seconds slower than my marathon PR. My PR, I ran my marathon PR when I was 50, and at 53 years old, just a couple of months ago, before I turned 54, yeah, I ran just like 25 or so seconds slower than what I did at 50, and I'm working towards next March trying to get another PR. Like, just because you're in your 40s or 50s is no reason to give up on trying to get faster. You can do it. It can be
Right.
done.
I was thinking about something and I lost my train of thought. I had like, oh, this is good. It just, I lost it. What was I gonna say? Oh, yes. So,
Okay.
so just thinking about people we follow. Like when I started running, I started following Kafusi and FOD runner. Now, Andy, FOD runner, he's
Uh-huh.
gotten, I remember when and I put, like I remember I started following him when he had like 300 subscribers or something. He has like 20,000 now.
Yeah.
But I remember he was training super hard to run, I think it was 3 hours. I mean, he's fast. Like, I think it was 3 hours 25. And now he's like running, I think he last one he did in 2:42.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he shaped, but it's because he keeps stacking like, and he's had marathons where he actually sort of
Oh,
quote
of
unquote
course. Yeah.
regressed, like he missed
You make a
his
very
goal
good
by a
point
lot.
also
Yeah,
for everybody out there. Running, just like life, is not a linear. The graph doesn't look like this. It doesn't just you don't just keep getting faster no matter what. You're gonna have bad days. You're gonna have average days. You're gonna have the occasional one out of every 10 races is gonna go so incredibly well that you just jump for joy because like everything finally fell into place. But most of the time it's a grind. It's hard, and you'll have a couple of good races, and then out of the blue you just tank it, and you have no idea why. but you
and it
can't
hurts
let it
so much. Like
bring
it's
you
like,
down. You can't
dang
let it
it.
bring you down.
Yeah,
Just
you have to
one bad
shake it up.
result does
Yeah.
not mean that you're done. Trust me. I've had plenty of bad results. I've had plenty of where I couldn't even finish the race, where I was just, got halfway through a marathon and I was like, you know what? This is really, really not my day, and I'm pulling out.
Right. Well, you know what happened to when I ran in Atlantic City in April. It was truly, yeah, so unfortunate. It was just not my day. So,
Yeah,
I,
exactly, exactly. But here you
and
are now, and this is the best training cycle I've ever seen you have. So you're on your way
oh,
to a really great result in October. So
hopefully. And I keep thinking, when I'm like, even today when I was hurting so much, because I was really like grinding, I was like, oh wow, my whole body hurts.
yeah,
And then I was thinking, well, this is how it's gonna hurt, if not worse. So I kept thinking, I better get on with the program because this is how it's gonna feel. So
well,
I
I
just
appreciate you grinding
let's
it out
keep
today.
going.
I really appreciate you
Oh
grinding
my
it out today, and I think, like again, to repeat, I think it was smart to cut those last couple miles because you felt so bad. But if we do this right, Susie, you're really not going to feel that. Probably will not feel as bad on race day, even in the latter miles of the marathon, as bad as you did
hopefully
today.
not, because today,
Because
oh,
so long as you don't go into the race getting sick, then I think it's going to be, you know, those last few miles of a marathon are never, I wouldn't call them fun, unless you're out there just to have fun. But if you're going for a new BQ or a new PR, I think it's hard work no matter what. But I don't. It shouldn't be terrible out there. I think you're
hopefully.
going to be running within yourself. I think you've been so consistent this training cycle, and we figured out what works for your body as far as the way we time out the hard workouts and the long runs. And so long as we get this taper right for you, I really, really think you're going to have a solid day out there, having to, without going in feeling like you have to perform like some kind of superhuman feat. I think it's just a matter of, I want you to go in with the mindset of, I'm capable of this. I've proved it on several runs throughout this training cycle. I just got to stay focused. Put up with that last half hour, 40 minutes, 45 minutes of, yeah, I'd rather be on the couch eating pizza, but
I
that's the
will
way every
soon.
marathon goes. So
Like it's funny how my mindset has changed because it's changed a lot. Like I used to like loathe being in pain. I used to be like, oh my God, why am I hurting so much? And like, but now I'm like, okay, again, I better get on with the program. It's gonna hurt. So it is what it is. I have to get used to it and just, you know, overcome it. Like I'm hurting. So what? Um,
yeah,
and before I used to even like try to make my runs easier. Like I used to, And now I look for the opportunity to make them harder if I can. So sometimes I'm not smart even when I'm making decisions. Like I have been like, I feel good today. Let's wait half an hour more so it's got hotter so that it's harder.
Uh, yeah.
Because I'm like, again, it's like it could be for wine glass, it could be like one of those October days in which you are like 85 degrees. It's not completely unheard of. So it's like, what
Hmm.
if it happens? Well, I have to get used to it. So let's just, you know. So I have found like, okay, I'm gonna welcome the opportunity to make it harder for me, or wear the shoes that are more uncomfortable for my long runs, like just the ones that my legs feel heavier and like just to make it harder. So.
Well, let me address that because I think that
Okay,
that
so
that
maybe
that
I'm not
needs a
doing the right thing.
no, 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 no. I think that depends. I think we can kind of make that a little bit more fine grained. I think if you're going out and the intention of the long run is, like you've got a lot of the vast majority of anybody's marathon training cycle, your long runs should be easy, um, in the sense of your pace should be in your easy zone, your zone one or low zone two, heart rate wise. If that's the aim of the particular run, I think going out, because I do the same thing. I'll strap on my New Balance More V3s, which is like a super cushy shoe, very heavy shoe, knowing it's going to make me work harder to keep a certain pace, just because of the sheer weight of the shoe. And I know by the time 15 miles goes by, I'm gonna notice the weight on that shoe, and also the squishiness of the foam. You don't get that bounce, you don't get that snap, and
Yeah,
so
because
you have to
it's
work harder.
absorbing. Yeah.
You have to work harder to keep the cadence going. You have to work harder to make sure you're landing on the front of your foot to get that snappy turnover. Whereas if you're wearing like a plated shoe or one of the super foam type shoes that's way lighter, you get you get help from the shoe. So on those long easy runs, it can help you to wear a heavier, squishier, mushier shoe just because it's going to make you do the work. You're forcing your muscles to work harder. Where that's not a good idea is on the days like, you know, for example, your workout today, where it was a shorter long run. It was like set to be 14 miles, but 3 by 2 miles at marathon pace. That's when don't disadvantage yourself with a slower, heavier shoe. Get your favorite snappy shoes on that still have enough padding to protect your feet, absolutely, because you always have to put that first. But if you're out there and every landing in your faster shoes makes you feel like, yeah, I want to run fast today. Of course, take every advantage that you can, in those situations. Plus, you want to be in something on those days where you have to run fast. You want to be in a shoe that, if it's not exactly the same shoe that you're going to be racing in, it should have a similar feel because those long runs are also training you for that race. You want to replicate as much as you can on your long runs with what you're wearing, with what's on your feet, the way you're fueling, which is something I would love to discuss with you. Um, I think it's one of the questions that you sent to me that some of your Patreons were asking, about how your fueling has changed. So
Yeah.
that could
Let's
be very
let's
exciting.
address. Yeah, because I've had this comment out for a while, and I was like, it's gonna distract people, so I took it
Gotcha.
down. So Lori's gonna run the Jacksonville half in December, which is, I think, it's perfect time to run a half marathon in, and Jacksonville should be flat. Planning for
Oh
spring
yeah,
marathon,
Jacksonville's very flat. Yeah.
and she gets it's close to the ocean. So I mean, I don't know exactly what the Jacksonville half, but running close to the ocean, you get that. It's that there's a reason why races next to the ocean, they're easier to run. Yeah. Um, Planning for a spring marathon in December goes well. If not, planning for another half in the spring and move attempt to fall race. Seems like
Gotcha.
sensible. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I think, fingers crossed for you, Lori, that everything goes well in December. I know that with the exception of a couple of river crossings, because I've studied the Jacksonville full course, and it's a very residential course, running through a lot of neighborhoods, and there's a couple of bridge crossings, I think. I don't know if it's the same for the half, but the only thing that is of any concern is Jacksonville, even in December, can be very muggy and kind of the weather can be warmer than you'd like it to be. Hopefully, you get a good day, but yeah, the good thing, if everything goes well there for you with the half, I prefer that when people, especially if you're going for a BQ or some big momentous goal in a marathon, it's a lot easier to train paces, specific paces, when you're training over winter. It's just, because as Susie can tell you, when you're training for a marathon over the summer, it's like a lot of it is faith, because you can't touch the paces you really want to. Um, it doesn't reflect what you're capable of just because you're battling the heat and the humidity. But you know, marathon training in the summer is more about judging your performance on effort much more than it is on paces, because like I said, you can't hit that kind of speed when you're dying from the heat.
Right. And also, I think I love running marathons in the fall though, but I do think the weather could actually, like my first marathon was my Youre marathon.
Hmm.
I trained throughout the summer. It was October 20 something, I think. No, it can't be that late. I think it's October 12th. I mean, I think it's midway through October. And it was such a hot day that
Yeah,
I was glad that I had trained during the summer because it was 95 degrees when I crossed the finish line. It was so damn hot. It was one of those rare October days in which it's like really, I mean, it was a summer day, really. It was so hot.
just more about
So
survival than trying to run any
it
kind of
was,
speed.
yeah, it was not a good marathon. I mean, your first one is always you pay the price of being a rookie, I think. So yeah, but I've never run a marathon in the spring, so it's going to be interesting when we do that. So we'll have
Wow.
to look at the
Yeah.
calendar. I've never, well, I shouldn't say that. I've run Disney Marathon, which I've always run for fun. So, and it's not the spring; it's the winter. So I don't even know what's around here in the spring. That's a full.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to.
I'm going down to Myrtle Beach in March to attempt this PR of mine.
Is
um,
it flat, Myrtle
oh, it's
Beach?
pancake flat. I've run it twice. Well, I've been to the start line twice, and I only finished it once because the second time I went back, and um, I forget what the injury was on that one, but I dropped out at mile 12 because I was in too much pain.
Oh wow.
But the course itself is amazing, just super quick.
Okay, so maybe that's one to to look into. So Ben is saying Andy's a machine. He is a
Yeah,
machine, but I mean, he was always, again, he was always fast, but now he's like really, like
yeah,
he
and
goes to races and wins races with like 1,000 people and he wins. So,
yeah, Andy is amazing. He's I consider him a good friend. He's been on my channel, and we've talked about sort of his speed workouts, and you know, I think what is so smart about the way Andy trains is that he is always. I'm pretty sure the way that he phrases it, he tries to squeeze all the juice out of a given weekly mileage as he can before he ups his mileage. Like to compare it to the way I came up, my the way that I achieved speed was by once I had run my first marathon in January of 2015. My way of getting faster was constantly cranking up the weekly mileage. Year after year, cycle after cycle, I went from 50-mile weeks to 120-mile weeks in the space of 3 years.
oh
And
wow.
that was my way of getting faster. Andy took it exactly the opposite way. He started around like 40, 50-mile weeks, and he squeezes like he works hard on the speed end of things until he just can't wring any more pace out of those fast workout days. Like his Tuesdays and his Fridays are all about trying to get as fast as he can in those speed workouts. And only once he sees there's no more gains to be made at 50-mile weeks, next time he'll go to 55-mile weeks and try to grind and push himself and repeat, rinse, repeat until, and now he's been at that same kind of pattern for so long now that he's up to running like, 70, 75-mile weeks, and he's rock solid. He's just rock solid, and he's continuing to make gains.
Yeah, and he had an interesting, like he's tried approaches that I think he was very brave as well, because it's not, when you're training, it's not easy to just say, I'm gonna do this and see if it pans out. And he was doing like double threshold days where he was running a threshold in the morning and then a threshold at night, which is
Yeah, that's
a
the
risky
the
approach,
Norwegian way of doing things. Yeah.
Yeah, and he tried it, and he tried and tried and tried, and he got much faster doing that. But I think again, it's not just your typical. I think he's brave. He's like, okay, I'm gonna try this and
Yeah.
sees it through. So
And again, he did it the smart way because, right now the Ingebrigtsen brothers, Jakob and I forget his brother's name, but they've made that double threshold Tuesday workout like sort of like it's just the talk of the town for the last like 6 months. Everybody wants to try it, but the difference with why I think it's so effective for Andy is because he's already at the kind of weekly mileage. Like I said, he's 65, 70,
right,
75 miles a week. When you get to around, when any runner gets to sort of the 70-mile threshold of weekly mileage, that's when, for the very first time, any runner should consider running doubles. Up to the 70-mile point, in my opinion, you get much more bang for your buck out of running just once a day and leaving your body the chance to recover. You get that full 24-hour cycle to get your body back up to speed before you go in for your next workout. And once you're hit like 70 miles, you can start introducing doubles on your easier days, so that you're running like 6 miles easy on a Monday morning. You go to work, give yourself 8 to 10 hours of just kind of letting your body chill out, and then you come back for 5 more easy miles at night. And then when that becomes something your body can handle, then you go into trying to double on your workout days, which is exactly what these Norwegian double threshold days that Andy has really been working so well. That's the first time, in my opinion, that's the way you should grow into that. Like, I don't think the average runner who's running 40 miles a week, if you just suddenly go from like on Tuesdays I go to the track and I run 4 miles of intervals with speed. If you suddenly try to double the amount of work you're doing on a Tuesday and you're still only running like 5 days a week,
right.
all you're going to do is
There's
break
no point.
yourself. Your
Right,
body is
right,
not ready to handle that much intensity all at once. So you have to build into it. You have to be to a point, in my opinion, if you're not running 70 miles a week, no runner has any business trying to run doubles. You're putting too much. There's too much demand on your body physically.
right. And you need like, I don't know. I mean, again, everybody's body is different. But for me, I used to do like a hard workout on a Tuesday, and then my Garmin would say you need 48 hours of recovery time, which now
Mm.
it rarely happens. It's always at most 24. So like I can see my body catches up faster. That's when you
Mhm.
can actually increase, mileage. But before that, you just like beating yourself down for there's no purpose in just like
Oh, exactly, exactly.
hammering
Yeah.
your body that hard that it doesn't have time to recover. Just like, what are you? Did you do? You don't get it. The only thing you're gonna get is an injury. So
Exactly, exactly. Yeah. If you're a 4 day a week runner, if that just starts to seem easy, add in a fifth day. But that new fifth day, make that 3 miles easy at first. See if you can get it up to 5 miles easy on that fifth day. And once that gets easy, consider day a sixth day. You know what I mean? And then you can start to kind of rework the way your whole weekly training cycle works so that you're getting in like a Tuesday hard day, a moderately hard day on a Thursday or a Friday, and then your long run on Sunday. And with easy days in between and one day completely off, you know,
Right.
and that is good enough to keep most runners busy all the way up until 60, 65 miles weekly. Once you're doing that and your body's handling it well, um, then you're starting to get into that serious territory. Again, once you start approaching 70 miles a week, that's the first time you should be considering 7 days a week of running. You know, otherwise you're just not. Your body will get more benefit from that extra day completely off of running and adding miles to the days you do run than you do by doing little bits of mileage 7 days a week. And your body is just kind of like, hey, I need a break here. I'm not, why are we running every day if we're only doing like 40 miles of total mileage a week? It's just, there's no point in it. You get way more cardiovascular benefit from compressing that into 5 days a week or 6 days a week at the
Right.
most.
Making the runs longer.
Exactly, exactly.
Right.
You know,
Right.
the cardiovascular adaptations, the muscular adaptations come faster with more miles on fewer days, up to a point. And you'll know when you've hit
Uh-huh.
that point because you'll just be walking around, you'll be dragging around like you're half dead most of the time. You know, that's when you should consider adding a day of running and lowering your daily mileage at that point.
Yeah. So I wanted to answer the questions, and we're coming up actually on the hour. Can you stay longer than 4 p.m.?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, okay, good. We didn't talk about that before we jump on the call. So April is saying our perceived failures are an opportunity to learn and grow. 100%. I've never consistently trained, so I can't get upset about my times. I there's there's people that say I'm not getting faster. Well, are you even like training? What's the goal? That's the thing, like what is your goal?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. If you just run because you enjoy running, hooray. You know, you've already found happiness with running,
right,
and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. Once you start to become goal oriented, you can only achieve those goals with an organized plan. You know,
right,
and if you want that, that's awesome. Um,
right. And if not, that's awesome too.
oh, exactly. Like I said, yeah. If you're just out there running 3 days a week simply because you enjoy being out there and you like the feeling of that motion, rock and roll. You're healthier than 80% of the human race by doing that. So just enjoy it. You know?
And I firmly believe. So my husband and I are hooked into Naked and Afraid, which I know it sounds super weird, but we're watching. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Naked and Afraid, but they have like 21-day challenges, and it's what it sounds. You're naked, and then you have to build your shelter, and like they give you minimal
Oh, okay,
tools,
okay. I got you, got you, got you.
and you have to get your food and boil your water and like all that. But they have like 21-day challenges, and then they have group challenges that are 40 days or 60 days. So it's amazing how, obviously because they're not catching food and they're exercising because they're always building shelter and going hunting and trying to get food and all that. They're like, in my mind, as humans, we were never meant to have as much fat as we have
Hmm.
these, like in modern days. And
Yep.
I think we are more efficient when we are moving and leaner, and because if you think about it, like if you're in the environment out there without modern commodities, you are like eating what you can and working hard
Oh,
to get the
exactly. Yeah.
food.
It's a weird trade-off. It's a weird trade-off because like before before the Neolithic Revolution, when we started farming as a race of animals on the planet, when we were hunter gatherers, yeah, we were constantly desperate to find nutrition and to stay safe and to make shelter and so of course we were probably malnourished most of the time as a species, but of course we were leaner just because calories are
But
not easy to find, but
that's the reason why we pack on the pounds so quickly. You eat like a bar, a cereal bar, and it's like, oh my God, like, well, because we're not designed to have all this food available.
oh exactly, yeah, when the hunt now has becomes like calling the store and ordering your food and then just going to pick it up.
You
That's
open,
not.
I mean, the fridge is always full. Not always full, but there's always stuff you can eat. So
Oh,
might not
exactly,
always be
exactly.
full, but yeah, there's always
Yeah, yeah.
stuff in
For
the
me,
house
it's
to eat.
always just
So.
yeah. As soon as a pack of Little Debbie's come into the house for me, they're gone in one shot. I have no self control when it comes to sugar. So
See, that's not my. I am good with sugar. So Ben is saying we all believe in you, Susie. Thank you, Ben. That's appreciated. So let's start answering questions. So Lori
cool.
asked, "How was I'm trying to remember exactly how is my training different today, running this marathon or training to run this marathon as opposed to when I was training for the half?" And
Yeah.
I know it's different, but I don't know why it's different. So maybe you can actually talk
Yeah,
about that.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. So I think probably the easiest and most obvious first part of that answer is I think you maxed out at like 38 miles in the half marathon training. This time we for the marathon, um, you're going to max out at about 53 miles. Um, and I think in the half marathon, there was a lot more emphasis put on top end speed work. Sorry, I don't know if that came out, top end speed work. Simply because a half marathon is really, as far as the type of training, as far as the kind of efficiency your body needs to run a half marathon well, it's almost, even though it's more than twice the distance of a 10K, the style of training for a half marathon has a lot in common with a 10K, where you need to spend a lot of time at tempo pace or faster pace. Now, for anybody watching who's not necessarily familiar with that terminology, tempo pace for most runners with a decent couple of years of experience running usually falls somewhere between your 10K pace and your half marathon pace. It's the point at which your body is creating lactic acid in your muscles from working so hard. It's creating that lactic acid faster than your body is able to clear it. That's what tempo pace usually means scientifically. Um, you can find it on any given day, whether it's super hot outside or it's perfect conditions, whether you're in bad shape at the moment because you're at the beginning of a training cycle, or if you're lean and mean and ready to crush everything in your path. Um, you can always find your tempo pace for a given day. It should never be, we can figure out a pace that generally adheres to that. You know, 7 minutes and 30 seconds per mile is your tempo pace for this training block, Susie, for instance. But the
Which is
best,
not.
most reliable way,
It's not. Don't people don't do
you'll
that.
get there soon enough. But the most reliable way you can find your tempo pace is run at speed that allows you to say or sing 3 or 4 words at a time, but you can't speak in full sentences. You can't have a conversation where you're just talking freely or sing an entire song all at once to yourself if you're running alone. It should be like, hey, Susie, how are you? Yes, I'm doing well myself. That's tempo pace.
Right, right.
Some days it's going
And
to be
it
faster,
varies per
some days
day,
it's going to be
right?
slower.
Right.
Generally, another way to judge it as you become more experienced with running, it's the maximum pace you can hold for a full hour. You can stay steady at X number of minutes and seconds per mile for 60 full minutes. There's your tempo pace. They generally correlate, those short answers and 1 hour of running. So that's why, for most people, it fits right between your half marathon and your 10K pace, because, for most people, except for the very elite, you're not running a half marathon in less than 60 minutes.
Right,
So,
right.
uh, but yeah, bring me back. The differences between half marathon training and full marathon
Yeah.
training. The big thing is, in a half marathon, because it has so much in common with a 10K race, in order to really truly maximize your potential, you have to spend a lot more time at that tempo pace and faster. You're doing a lot of sort of track repetitions of various different lengths where you're running at 5K or faster pace, um, because that pushes up your VO2 max, which is the maximum amount of oxygen that your body can process in a minute. That's what VO2 max is. And the higher you can raise your VO2 max, basically all that really means is every time you breathe in, it's your body's ability to take that oxygen out of that breath, get it into your blood. So the capability of you to bond that oxygen to the iron in your hemoglobin, pump it, have a very efficient heart to pump it through your body as fast as possible. The more liters per minute that your heart can pump, that is more efficiency. This all comes from the high-end super speed work. Um, the slower stuff, where you're running easy days especially, what that does is it builds the mitochondria, the number of mitochondria, and the efficiency of the mitochondria in every single muscle cell in your body, so that it can take that oxygen when it's delivered through your bloodstream and produce the ATP, which is your energy source, your ultimate energy source, and allow you to work harder with less oxygen input. The other thing that happens at slow paces is the branching of your blood vessels themselves. The more you train at low heart rates, the more branching happens. So it's that combination. But in order to move really well in a half marathon and a 10K, you're spending a lot more time kind of pushing the upper end of your speed. If you're not doing that, you're not going to run your best half marathon. There's still, but the thing is to keep in mind, especially for the new runners and the runners who are not running a lot of mileage, if you're a 3 or 4 day a week runner, you can't just jump into that speed stuff. So, like for somebody like April, the first time that you're jumping into a half marathon, you're going to make leaps and bounds of progress simply because of your heart is getting stronger. You're branching all the stuff that comes at the slower end. But by the time you've run 4 or 5 half marathons strongly, where you're crossing the finish line and you're not feeling like you want to die, when you're getting to the point where you're just comfortable running that distance, only then do you want to really attack the high-end stuff where you're really making your heart work hard, where you're really pumping and grinding with those muscles. Because if you jump into that high-end stuff too soon, before your body's just used to putting in a lot of miles at easy pace, the only thing you're going to walk away with is an injury. You have to slowly build into that really intense stuff, because otherwise I've seen people do it. Unfortunately, I've had a couple of clients that were like, no, I want results now. and the only thing they did is sideline themselves. And now I'm still working with one client of those two. One, I'm wide open about my relationship. I don't give away names. I don't give away details. But you know, I lost one of those clients because I refused to be like, no, I'm not going to grind you into the ground. I'm not going to grind you into the ground because all I'm going to do is injure you, and that's not what I do as a coach. I'm not in that business. And now with the other person who hurt themselves, went to the track for the very first time. There went the calf, and there went 6 weeks of what could have been really good training. Is now
Right.
rehab. So um, work your way into it. It's a slow progression. Like I was saying before, it's the only way you become a good runner is year after year, not allowing yourself to get injured, and
Right.
staying motivated because every training cycle builds on the one before it. You know,
Yeah.
but
And it's better to arrive to the start line undertrained than overtrained.
there you go. There you go.
And I
Still
was
gonna
actually
have a good
talking,
day.
yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine. I actually worked with him, um, but he's a runner too. And I was talking about New York City Marathon and how the week leading to New York City Marathon, I didn't have the best of training because I was grinding myself to the ground. But towards the end, I realized afterwards I was
Hmm.
so overtrained. My resting heart rate at that time, now it's less than that, but at the time it was 60. And leading into the marathon, I woke
Hmm.
up the morning of the marathon. My resting heart rate had been building up and it was
Hmm.
75, my resting heart rate. So when
Yeah.
I started running the
So yeah,
marathon,
there's all kinds
in
of
the
reasons for that, but overtraining
in the
generally.
first mile, I hit 182 beats per minute, and I ran 4 hours and 45 minutes with my
Mm.
heart rate at 180. Yeah, so yeah,
Wow, that's
I was
scary.
overtrained. But I ran it in 4 hours 45. So it's like, okay, if I could do that, can you imagine if I had been like properly
Yeah,
tapered?
exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you're gonna have a much lower heart rate and a much easier time at Wine Glass in October, than
Oh,
redlining
my
for four
resting heart
hours.
rate, my resting heart rate now is like 54, 55, depending on the day. So
That's awesome. That's
it's,
awesome. That's
I've
just
never had like a super low. I always run, I still run high. Like I have run, I had a run the other day that my heart rate was, I think it was 192 at the peak. So my heart goes super high.
say it again. Sorry, I missed
I'm
that
saying
last
that
bit. Okay.
my heart rate goes super high. Like not in every run, but if I'm doing speed, my heart rate can get to 190. Like if I run a 5K, my heart rate gets to like 195, and I probably say that, yeah, for the most of the time during the
So
5K,
in
that's
in a
like
way,
190,
Susie,
190.
I got to tell you, in a way, I'm jealous. Like uh, at my age, at my age, if I think I see myself hit 180 beats a minute twice, maybe 3 times a year, like literally, and only for a second. Like my heart just at my age just cannot beat that fast. Just it's for me when I get up to like 162, 163, I know I'm working unless I'm doing really fast stuff like at the track. I know I'm working way too hard. Like if I'm just out for an easy run and I'm see myself get to 160, I know I either didn't get enough sleep or I'm not hydrated well or I'm just too tired. Period. I didn't recover well enough. Something's going wrong. So it's
Yeah, no,
nice to have that upper end capacity. Is like my point.
I don't
The
know.
faster you
I
can
don't
actually
think
get you don't want to be operating at that high a rate, but
like I read sometimes
sorry.
people that follow Maffetone and low heart rate and all that. If I had to run with that formula, Maffetone formula, I think it's my heart rate should
Hmm.
be like 120. It would take me, I'm not kidding, but it would take me 4 hours to run a 10 miles. because I
Yeah,
can't.
no,
I mean, I would have to like
it's
walk and then run a little bit and then walk, and it's just not. I mean, that can't be the formula for everybody. It just can't, because then I would never be able to train for anything.
oh,
How did I
I
run a
know,
marathon
and
in 4 hours 45? If that's what,
it does improve. There are some people who have a really good result from MAF training, but it's a grind. You have to you're slave to your watch basically when you're doing maffetone. Or I shouldn't call it maffetone training because the MAF and maffetone training are just like a one isn't named a MAF training is not named after Phil Maffetone. It's just happened to work out that way. but but the people who get the best results from MAF training are, which is low heart rate training, by the way, for everybody who's watching. Um, the people who get the best results out of that are the people who are very also careful with their diet. You have to combine low carb diet
oh, really?
in order to get the best out of that because the whole idea behind MAF to keep your heart rate low is you got to eliminate the carbs, especially the processed carbs from your diet and try to burn. You want to go into ketosis basically. You want to get your body used to burning fat more than sugar. So if you're kind of like all over the place with your diet, like somebody like me, math training will never work for you. It'll just be frustration.
I like carbs. I mean, okay.
Now,
Another question I had from, actually, I don't remember who asked this question. Oh, it was Lori too. She asked about the shoes. So, which shoes I was going to use for the marathon. Now, I could see myself running the marathon in my Boston nines.
mhm.
My phone is not charging, and I'm filming on my phone. Hold on a second. Why is it not charging? Now it is. Um, but I would like to give a try to the Takumi Sen, the new Adidas shoes. They're out of stock everywhere though. Like I don't
For
know,
the Takumi Sen for
for the
what
marathon.
purpose? Ooh, that's interesting. it's
I I am very so I run April Fools with my um endorphin pros, the Saucony.
okay.
I am very when I run on them, my toes fall like tingle.
Oh, really? Okay.
And it didn't used to be that way. Like I used to love them, so I don't know why. The last two pairs I bought, they make so I don't know if maybe again my form changed and I stepped differently, but after 6 or 7 miles, my toes, it's uncomfortable. My toes tingle.
Let me ask you
So
this about that shoe. Are you talking about versions one or two or the new three?
the two, the one I own right now is the two,
Okay,
but I
okay,
used to love
because
them.
not that I'm trying to sell you the three or anything, but the three is an utterly different shoe. It feels nothing like the one and two. It's much softer, it's much more flexible and snappier. But at any rate, yeah, what really surprised me, you saying the Takumi Sen, the Adidas shoe, is that's a kind of a low stack shoe that is kind of designed for shorter distances. I would be
I love
scared that.
the
Go ahead.
Boston nines are the best. Like I love running in that shoe, but they don't
Yeah,
make them
no, I've
anymore.
heard a lot of good things about that shoe. I know they kind of screwed up the 10 and the 11, but
They
I,
have to bring it back. Like, just I don't know why, but the problem is that I don't know that they're gonna make it to the marathon because they probably have already like 300 miles on them.
yeah, that's kind of iffy. I wouldn't take the chance myself. I would want something. I would only want a new shoe though, but keep in mind if you're going to buy a new shoe that you want a marathon in, you better buy it like this week because I
Right.
would
No, I
want you
have
to
to
run
make
a
a
couple of
decision.
long runs in it just to make sure that you're happy with it.
Right. It's just that the Takumi Sen, apparently there's people who are using them for like training long runs and with, you
Yeah,
know,
that
good.
surprises me because I know, yeah, I know that shoe's got a great reputation for like speedier, shorter distance runs. Um, I would
It's gonna
really,
be it's gonna be hard because really, I love the Boston Nines. That's the problem. Like that was my perfect shoe. If I could just have Boston Nines, that's what all I would run in.
Now,
Not
have you
run
ever
short
run in
runs.
something like the Hoka Clifton or anything like that?
I've never owned Hokas. No.
Okay, okay. Yeah, and I mean, it's something to keep in mind. Most Hokas are kind of if you have a if you have a wide foot, Hokas tend to squeeze a
I
little
have a
bit.
white foot. I
Yeah.
have a white foot. Yeah.
Um,
I have a white foot and it's interesting because when I run in like well, any other thing that's not really Adidas. Even I own the Adidas, the Adios, and they were good, not as good as the Boston Nine. Um, but sometimes with I over depending on the shoe, I overstride with my right foot and I get the toe out of like I poke, I break the shoe super quick, like within like two or like 30 miles, I break the shoe.
oh wow.
Like I had the Nova Blast. They're awesome shoes. Well, my toe, my right toe picked through 40 miles into the shoe. I'm still using them because they are, other than that, they're fine. But it's just picked through. Like,
Now, other than that, on the upper, are you talking about the Nova Blast 2 or the 3 or the 1 or?
I think they're the two, actually. Nova Blast two, I
Okay.
think they are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that shoe. I bought a pair. They were just too soft. I did not like that shoe.
See, I actually bought them because Andy Rayner, he said they were the perfect shoe for everything. So I was like, okay.
Yeah,
I decided that was, yeah,
I
I said,
don't
oh.
agree with Andy on that point.
So he's the one who said that Takumi Sen are the perfect shoe for everything, like for marathon, or like he did a video
Wow,
on it. Yeah.
very
And
interesting.
they are sold out. There are resellers on the internet selling the Takumi Sen today for $400.
Oh, that's crazy.
They
That's crazy.
completely like Adidas is sold out unless they restock in the last 2 or 3 days.
Wow. Now, if you liked the Nova Blast 2, the
I
Nova
can't say I like them. They're a good shoe to train in. I like the Boston Nines. That's the problem. They don't make them anymore.
Yeah, yeah. To me, the reason I didn't like the Nova Blast 2 was because the foam was too soft. I felt like they almost bottomed out. Like there's no way to get any kind of speed out of that shoe. It was soft. It was nice and squishy. You know, if your intention was to go out and run slow, um, cool. But I just could not pick up the pace in that shoe. But I have heard that the foam in the Nova Blast 3 is a little bit firmer, a little bit more responsive. And along those lines, and this is what I eventually wanted to get to for you, Susie, um, the Super Blast, the Asics Super Blast is kind of like I've heard nothing but great things about that shoe. It's basically got their super foam, so it's super bouncy and responsive, but it doesn't have a plate, doesn't have a carbon plate. So if it was in fact the carbon plate that was kind of messing with your tingling toes, causing all that to happen with the Saucony shoe, the Pro, you may want to at least play around with try on a pair of the Super Blasts from Asics because you get all the bounce without the stiffness of the plate.
I think it's a question of maybe going to, like a running store and try something out. But anything that gets me as close as the feeling with the Boston Nines,
Yeah.
because to me the Boston Nines, they're comfortable. I could run forever in them. They don't weigh me down.
Do
They
you have
don't
any
cause
idea
me
what the
weird
drop was in that
sensation.
shoe? I suppose I could look it up while we're talking.
The Boston Nine, it's probably they're pretty flat. I mean, yeah. So I don't think the drop, I don't know. They're not zero drop, but they're pretty low. They made, when they changed the plate, and they made it carbon plated, they are like super high now.
Yeah, it says here 10 millimeter drop. I'm looking at runningshoeguru.com. 10
And
millimeter drop. So yeah.
that's the
So
Boston Nine?
yep.
Oh
Oh no,
wow.
wait a minute. Yeah, wait. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Sorry. Um,
It's also
So yeah, I mean that
they're
leaves
not
you,
foam, it's rubber. It's like it's a basic. I mean,
yeah, like just an
the
EVA.
Boston Nine, it's really nothing. I like it. Sometimes I think they change the model so that they could make it more like appealing to because it's more like innovative and stuff. Because the Boston Nine didn't have any, you know, it was just the normal. It's just a really regular shoe. There's nothing
Yeah, but it was
spectacular.
just the right combination. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Brooks Ghost is another kind of. I think that's a 12 millimeter drop in that shoe. That's always been famous as super duper comfy. Um, I haven't owned a pair of Ghosts since the version 9, which is like 6 years ago. But if you're looking for squishy comfort, if you can stand a 12 millimeter drop, that's a really comfortable shoe. I don't like those that big a drop anymore though, so I stay away from them.
I think I'm gonna have to, and I would go this week. Yeah, just to find out what
Yeah.
feels comfortable and then try it out, obviously. So let me tackle a couple more questions that I got through Patreon. So Carol, she asked, have you changed your nutrition for your marathon training compared to half marathon training or your other previous races? Do you have a specific marathon training diet or any new food habits? This was a really good question.
Oh yeah.
So it's a smart question. So to answer the question, I am actually trying to. So when I've trained for races in the past, I was always trying, obviously, to focus on eating carbohydrates just to sustain the training.
Hmm.
This time around, though, I am focusing. I eat carbs like before my long run, like the Saturday. The long runs
Sorry,
are
I'm
Saturday,
having a
so
little trouble hearing you.
Saturday and Sunday. Can you
There we
hear
go.
me? Okay.
Yep,
So
now I can.
I think the microphone is here, and I was covering
Gotcha.
the microphone. So I'm trying to up my carbohydrates before the long runs. So Friday and Saturday, then I focus on, okay, let's up the carbs, but not
Perfect.
necessarily I eat that many carbs the rest of the week.
It's funny. It's exactly
So
the way I've been going after things.
I try to, keep the protein. That will change when I get to the week before the marathon. I will try and up but I just feel like because when you will eat more carbs, you accumulate more water. I feel heavier, which I think it might just be a feeling. I don't think that there's a lot of like
No, it's
on the
true. It's
scale.
true.
Is it? But
When
I feel heavier. Like I feel like I'm moving slower. So I don't want to feel that way every single day of my existence. So
hmm
yeah. So
Yeah,
I just
going
do
into
it
your
before
long
the
run,
long
it's
run.
always a good idea to carb up. Like, especially when you're in the later stages of a training cycle like you are right now. Um, you want to, if you're doing long runs on Sundays, um, you want to get into the routine of what race day and the approach to race day is going to be like. So, um, doing your carb loading on Fridays and Saturdays leading into a Sunday long run is exactly perfect. And then, that's exactly what I do. But in order to gain strength, to actually put on more muscle mass, I've found that Monday through Thursday, I'm paying a lot more attention myself to making sure that I am taking in enough protein instead of just blindly eating carbs just because it's so much fun to eat sugar. Um, just to make sure that, when I'm doing my weight workouts, and I know you're so good about your strength routines too. Um, when you're actually lifting those weights, and when you're running, you're actually damaging your muscles. You're causing micro tears to your muscles, and the only way you can rebuild that quickly and get stronger is by eating enough protein to allow your body to resynthesize those muscle fibers.
Right. So I used to not eat. I eat more protein now than I used to, even at the beginning of this, like last year, the beginning of this year.
Hmm. One thing I'd
But
like you to talk about too, Susie, that I think is very relevant to the question asked. Um, don't just talk about your general nutrition day to day, but um, you've done such an absolutely wonderful job since about halfway through the half marathon cycle and it coming into this marathon cycle. You have increased your ability to take on hydration and carbohydrate fuel in the run. Like, you've gotten so good at it so quickly. I want you to talk about
Oh, thank you. I still think like sometimes I drink too much water because I have to stop, find a bush. Yeah.
that.
So I can't say that I have the hydration. Like I have to nail down because obviously during the marathon you don't want to have to stop and wait in line for the. I mean that would ruin your and you're uncomfortable if you're running with it like a full
Oh
bladder.
yeah.
You're very uncomfortable. So I have to actually tweak that a little bit. Um, but carbs, I actually so I tried Tailwind, and at first, the first 3 or 4 weeks that I was using Tailwind, I was getting so much gas in my stomach. It was painful. Like I would be running and I would have cramping and like really, I was very uncomfortable. But I persevered. And so I kept, I quit for like a week and then came back to Tailwind again. And now we're friends. Like Tailwind is working really well for me right
Good,
now.
good,
So I
good.
think I just needed to build up to it. So today, for example, I had, and I load, so I have this 18-ounce bottle. And I think I'm going to take that to the marathon actually.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So because I can put it in my pocket here. Now I've been chafing in the pocket, behind the pocket. Again,
Yeah.
I'm chafing in weird places. Um, but I think eventually I will be able to not chafe. And if I chafe, I'm cool with it. If it gives me a
Okay.
PR, I'm cool with chafing there. It's all good. I don't care. You really only care when you're taking a shower. It's like the
Oh,
rest
it's
of the
just the
time you're,
worst. There's no pain like that pain.
yeah. So it's like, okay, well, I can take it. I'm not, that's my big girl pants. So, but if I can put it in my pocket on the right, I would have and I've been loading it with in 18 ounces with 3 scoops of tailwind.
Oh
So
wow.
if I can get to 4, that would be ideal because then I could use that as extra, fuel. Drink water in the water stations, have that as like
I was going to
water,
ask that question.
another, and then I am going to have my 5 goose, the pouch that I've been using. I'm gonna have it on my left pocket.
That's
So that's
awesome.
what I plan on doing. Yeah,
Good
and then
stuff.
my
Good stuff.
phone, I'm gonna put it in my. I have a bra. I have a couple bras with like a pocket in the back. And when you're running, you don't need your phone. So I'm just gonna put it there, and it's gonna be
Hmm,
secured in my bag.
good. So
And
yeah,
yeah,
I think
the only
it's
thing that I need to access is the tailwind on my right and the so so
exactly,
that's the
exactly.
plan. I might even carry extra goose because I have figured out I can actually tolerate a lot of carbohydrates. Go figure. Like I wasn't able to even like run with the tailwind.
Well,
So
that's
I don't
what's
know.
amazing.
It
That's
just
what's
gets
amazing.
used. Yeah.
You've come along so quickly because I remember you saying, I'm not going to remember the exact numbers, but you were barely drinking at all when we got started in the half marathon training, and you've brought it to the point where you know that 18 ounces that you're going to be carrying with you isn't going to be nearly enough liquid to get you through the race. So you're going to have to stop at the water stops, um, and that with being able to take in gel, um, every 4 miles or even, since you're not limited by single packets anymore because of the way you're using the goo. Um, it's awesome. I mean, if you can get a small, like half of a gel's worth um, of that maltodextrin into you like every 2 miles, what that really means to your system is that you're going to have a much more even energy availability instead of peaking and crashing and peaking and crashing. And that's the big trick in these extended races. So rock and
Yeah.
roll. I'm so happy for you.
When I did the 18 miler, actually, I was like, every time that my Garmin told me it buses every mile. So with every mile, I would just take like it. And it's so easy with that. You don't even have to, like, it's always like open, really. So you just push it, put it back in your
Gotcha.
pocket, and then it's just a tiny little bit, but once it gets to your upper palate, it
Hmm.
just gives you that kick of, I don't know if it's the saltiness or the sweetness or whatever it is, but it just gives you a kick. So
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I think that's, I'm just gonna have, and I'm gonna grab whatever gels they have on the course. I'm just gonna grab them and eat them too. Yeah. So I
Okay,
would
yeah.
much rather.
Do they tell you what kind of gels they're making available?
It's a weird brand, not that, but it's a pretty novice. It's not something I actually checked them out. It's I forgot the brand. It's the same brand for the gels and the electrolytes.
Hammer? Is it something like Hammer?
Uh.
No.
No, it's a new. Let me check it out actually.
Yeah, because the only thing I would
Um,
say, I wouldn't be a good coach if I didn't tell you to buy some and practice with them first, because we don't want any surprises on race day.
course fluid gels. Oh, they're Huma. They're Huma tea gels. Yeah.
Interesting. Haven't tried those.
I have had them. I just can't remember which race. They have a weird consistency because they are chia seed.
Oh wow.
Yeah, they have a weird
So they're going to be
consistency.
chewy.
They are like, yeah. And then the electrolytes are going to be raspberry lemonade Huma hydration electrolytes. So it's
Wow.
powder mix that they're going to mix at the um, water stations. So
Yeah, we may want to do a little bit of talking, offline at some point in the next couple weeks about fueling. I don't necessarily want to do it in real time here while everybody's watching, but
yeah, I've had it before. I don't just don't remember which race it was. Might have been the Jersey City half. I think they had Huma chia gels.
oh wow, interesting.
And I had it. Like I always, whatever they give me, I actually have it on the course. I wait till towards the end to have it, but I have it. Yeah, I always they never go to waste. So like, but I would wait maybe like when 3 miles before the end of the race, and I tried. I have them. So I plan on taking whatever because I would much rather have the sugar in
Yeah,
me than
I would
leave
just
it to
say
waste.
maybe buy some to take on the next couple of long runs just to make sure that we don't get a bad surprise on race day, you know.
So April has had them. She said Hume are so good. I
Okay.
remember the consistency being weird. Yeah. April
Yeah.
saying I've run a marathon and three halves without proper training and have suffered the consequences. I'm starting over and treating my training like I'm a beginner. You're
Well,
not a
good stuff.
beginner though. What do you think, Paul? I mean, with a marathon on your belt, you're not a beginner. I mean,
Yeah, you're not a beginner,
yeah.
because just having been through those battles kind of hardens you. You know what to expect out there. The only thing I would say, April, is as you get more organized with your training, um, you will definitely notice that those distances become easier. Um, you know, no doubt about it. If you get with a coach or just do the research yourself, whatever works for you, um, the more you hone in your fueling, the more you hone in the types of workouts that are necessary, and if it's the consistency more than anything, knowing what days you're going to be doing what and not allowing it to slip, um, it's going to make all the difference. It'll make the latter miles of those runs much more consistent. It, your performance will be consistent from beginning to end as opposed to sort of reaching the halfway point and then falling apart. Not to say that that necessarily happened to you, but you will have a much better time out there, without doubt.
Yeah, the more you train. I mean, it's not, you can have a phenomenal training block and then bomb the race, but the chances of that happening are much higher if you're not properly trained.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
everybody can have a bad day. Yeah.
Yeah, of course, and everybody does have a bad day. That's just part of running. That's kind of what makes it so addictive, you know.
I know. I keep saying I need more bad days in training because then that means the chances, statistically, my marathon is going to be phenomenal. So I want more bad days.
Nah, I mean you. I think this is the strongest I've ever seen you, Susie. You know, to I think you're really going to assuming you know whatever plan we sit down and whatever your race plan turns out to be that we agree upon that you're absolutely happy with. Um, if you stick to the plan, it's going to be a good day for you. You know, barring of course, 80 degrees and high humidity or something like that. You know, if you get like a anything from 55 degrees and lower, um, and low humidity, it's going to be a good day for you. I can just see it already. You know, we're almost ready. We're a couple of weeks away from taper. And you've been so strong throughout this whole thing. It's just you've been too consistent for something just completely out of the blue to happen. Like you know what I mean?
But
Like
it could. I mean, it could, like the one thing, the one. So I wanted to talk about this because it's interesting. So any other time I've trained for marathon, like seriously trained. So I consider it. So really, I have run I've run 7 marathons, but 4 of them I trained hard, like with a goal in mind.
yep.
Because when I did Disney Marathon both times, I have my medals there. I'm super proud of them, but I PR'd in fun. I was not going to. It's one of those marathons that you because you pay first of all you're paying a lot of money, but also there's so much fun. It's almost like you don't want to get to the finish line.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's so weird. It's like
It's
okay,
the
whatever
experience of
happens,
it all.
it's like I just want to go slow to the castle. So it's a different kind of race. Fuck.
You lose the power cable. It looks like Susie lost her power cable. So, folks, if you've got any questions in the chat, I will be more than happy to answer them while we wait on Susie. But, folks, yeah, if you've been following along with Susie's training, I would say that you're seeing a really good example of how to stay consistent, of how to really get everything right. I really see in Susie's performance over the last, whatever it is, 12 weeks, somebody who was committed from the beginning to doing really well. She's. Oh, looks like we lost Susie completely, at least for a minute. But I think Susie has finally become very good with giving B plus performances that allow her to come back the next day and feel good enough to get the job done. There she is.
I am here. I am so sorry. My phone is not charging. It's the weirdest thing. I had it plugged all along and it's just losing charge. It's not charging fast enough to keep up with it.
I gotcha.
I'll figure it out later.
I was just talking a little bit. I took the opportunity while you were getting replugged to say how anybody who's been following along with your training for this cycle has seen like wonderful examples of how to stay consistent, how to, I think the big thing, and I know I've said this to you, while not on the live stream before, Susie, that I think the biggest thing that I've seen change for the better about the way you're training this time is that when you're willing to give a B plus performance on a hard day, like on a hard workout day, pull back when you need to. I saw it again today. You just made a smart call. Pull back when you need to in order to be able to perform tomorrow. You're thinking bigger picture now. You're not thinking in terms of, I don't care if I have to grind myself into the ground. I've got to get this workout done. You're thinking in terms of, I really want to get this workout done, but if I have to pull back a little bit in order to survive and be able to do my next workout well, you're doing that, and that is always the smartest way to train. It's about the last 10 workouts. It's not about nailing it today. Give it a good effort. Give it a B plus effort so that you can give another B plus effort in 3 days. Week after week after week, you're going to get way stronger giving me 10 B plus workouts than giving me 2 A plus workouts, and then you got to miss 4 of them because you're just way too tired. And once that consistency is gone, the training cycle starts falling apart. So it's much better to be as good as you can be for now, but always think in terms of what do I need to do to be ready for the next one.
Right. So I was saying that every single time I've trained for a goal, my long runs have always been the same pace that I ended up running the marathon at.
Okay.
Which is weird. They shouldn't be. And I think, and also, I never saw consistent improvements over time. I thought of like, kind of was like in this same
gray zone.
Yeah, it was like I was posting the whole train. Like, yes, I was running and I was putting the miles, but I never saw like I'm running my intervals much faster, or this I felt stronger. Like I always felt the same way. Like even when I was doing Hal Higdon last year for Atlantic City, I did my longest run, I think was a 22 miler. I ran that long run at 10:30 minute per mile pace. I ended up running the marathon slower than that. So in theory, I should have been able to at least keep the same pace.
It sounds to me like you were probably just a little bit overtrained, is what it sounds
so
like.
I do think my stomach was doing weird things like 3 days before the marathon, and I think I was just overtrained, and that was the way my body had to say, this is where you're going to call it off. Like this is where you're going to have to sort of, I don't know. I think that's how I paid the price.
Yeah. I think one thing that you've also, one of the big things that I see you putting into practice this time around, which is making the difference. Like you say, you used to go through the training cycle and it would kind of be the same performance level from beginning to end. And this time, we're definitely not seeing that. We're definitely seeing improvement week over week. And I think a big lesson that you've learned that, April and everybody who's watching, the reason for that is because Susie has really internalized the lesson of polarizing your training. Trying to run fast to prove something to yourself on an easy day. I'm going to try to prove to myself, I'm going to get an extra hard day in here. I'm going to run this easy day fast. The only thing you're doing is robbing speed from the day when you're supposed to be running fast. If you let go of the idea that easy is a pace, easy is not a pace. Some days I go out for an easy run and I run 8-minute miles. Some days I go out and my easy pace is 10:15. I don't care. I purposefully, when I start my watch, I flip it to a screen that shows, the only thing it shows me is my heart rate, because I don't want to know what pace I'm running at, because that will make me want to go faster. Easy means whatever pace you need to run to give your body a break. That's easy pace, and it changes every day. If you can let go of your ego enough to run as easy as you need to, you're going to run those workouts, the hard days. You're going to be able to give it everything you got. But if you're always kind of, your easy days are here, then your hard days can only get to here. Whereas if those easy days are down here, your hard days, you can crush them. And that's where the benefits are going to come from. That's when you start to see week over week, you're getting faster. If everything's kind of within a minute of each other, pace-wise, from day to day, you're just going to stay the same forever. You got to learn to let go of the ego, and Susie is just crushing it this time. It's only going to get better with time.
I hope so.
Yeah,
Yes.
I have no doubt about it myself. I know you're seeing it for the first time in yourself, but I can already see the pattern, very plainly. You're if you keep up this same way of training for the next couple of years, I know you think I'm full of shit, but 2 years from now, you're not going to be gunning for 355 still. You're going to be chasing 320, 315. You're
That
going to
would
be
be
down
awesome.
there. It's going to happen. It will happen. As long as, the only way that something like that won't happen is if like life demands, suddenly you've got to be working 60, 80-hour weeks at work.
Which
Family
I hope
demands
it never
go.
happens. I don't
Yeah.
have that
And
kind of.
if stress from family and all that stuff gets in the way, that happens to everybody, and everybody has to kind of pull back on their run training sometimes. It happens to everybody. There are seasons where where running just has to become secondary. But as long as you're consistent, as long as you're always training smart, you get stronger and you get faster. It doesn't matter who we're talking about. Hey, Heather's here.
She ran a super race yesterday. She ran this scorching squirrel. I can't pronounce it. I'm butchering it. The scorch. I think it's the scorching squirrel,
I
right? You're
haven't seen
gonna
that
have
video
to.
yet.
She hasn't. She ran it yesterday. I think the video is
Hmm.
probably coming this week.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's awesome.
she's crashing her. Her training too. Um, I think I stopped. Did I stop? Because I changed. If does my face, does my streaming stop if I do this?
What?
Can you still see me moving? Because I'm changing. I was going to read the last question I got.
Okay. No,
Um,
there's been no interruption in your video.
cool. That's great. So, would you recommend trail running between road running workouts? It's not the same muscle groups are involved, but good to improve balance and stamina. And she's asking, this is from Carol, what do you think? And then she's asking about, from you, would you include trail running sessions into your road marathon training?
I think that actually ties in really well with what we were just saying, Susie. Easy days easy, hard days hard. Um, if you can, if you're training for a road race, I don't care if it's a 5K, 10K, half, full. If you're training for a road race of any length, if you can get on the trails or the grass or crushed gravel, dirt on your easy days, rock and roll. The only time I would say no is if the trails that you plan to run on are like really technical trails. If you've got a lot of rocks, loose gravel, roots, then no, because your chance of injury goes way up, especially if you're not already a very experienced trail runner. Your chance of just, oops, I didn't see that one route and now I've got a twisted ankle. You don't want to go there. But if your trails are like really well groomed trails, you are doing yourself all kinds of good favors by running on softer surfaces on those easy days. Absolutely. Go to it.
And I know that she actually hikes a lot because she lives in close to Seattle and they have like wonderful trails
Cool.
out there. So I know yeah, we follow each other on Strava and she's always hiking. So she runs and she hikes.
Yeah, that's great. And especially in the early stages of training, if you're kind of like, if you're not sort of 70 miles plus training per week, then even replacing easy run days with hiking on the trails is absolutely awesome. That the vertical gain you get from hiking sort of mountainous trails is, you're getting just as much benefit from that as you are from a super easy run. So feel free.
Right. Now, so I know this is not a question that I got, but one of my friends, Kristen, she does, she's an avid runner, but she doesn't get injured, but she gets like nuggets of like pain here and there sometimes, and she has a good she goes to the PT almost every week, so she gets readjusted.
Okay.
But she has like her hips bother her and her ankles bother her. She does a lot of strength training. It's just the
Oh,
way
she
her
does.
body.
Okay, that's the first
It's
place I
just
was going to
that's
go.
just her body. Yeah. Um, but I know she, I always she does a lot of Peloton workouts too, like on the bike.
Okay,
And I always
cross
told
training.
her that's
Okay.
obviously. But is that a good, like, I know people who actually run marathons and they do 30 miles of running and then a bunch of miles on the Peloton bike.
Absolutely.
So how does that, like, is that like, what does that do for your fitness?
Well, it's the big thing is you're lowering the amount of impact stress on your body because of all the sports out there, we've chosen the one that just beats your body up worse than any other sport. So, um, if and the huge benefit is that the cardiovascular development. What we were talking about earlier in the live stream when we are talking about the zone 1 and the low zone 2 adaptations that happen in your body, like the more mitochondria, the branching of the blood vessels, the all that good stuff that happens at the slower paces. You get that with the cycling in equal amounts. So it's great cross training. If you're like a 30-mile a week, a 25-mile a week runner who doesn't do strength training, who doesn't do core work, that's the first place to go. Get
She
on
does a
board
lot
with
of that.
that.
Well, yeah,
And if,
it's
if
just,
at that point your body is just in a place where you just can't push your mileage any higher because you're just, you know, that's just life. Some people just, that's all they can handle running. Then you'll see huge benefits from cross training with cycling and with swimming, um, with the stairmaster, with the I'm blanking on the machine where you pull the handles and your
all
feet go around
the bike,
circles. The elliptical, the elliptical.
yeah,
Huge benefits from that. If you can't keep building the mileage on the roads or the trails from running, then absolutely. Um, that's why you see. Um, that's why you see triathletes who simply because they have to split all their training time between 3 different disciplines, still able to crush it when it comes to running, is because of the massive cardiovascular benefits they get from the other 2 exercises they're doing. Yeah, I just want to reiterate, that's great, but first, if your goal is to become a great runner, get on the core first, get on the strength training second, then slowly build your mileage. Always introduce more mileage with easy miles. Don't suddenly try to double the length of your Tuesday track workout. You're just going to injure yourself.
right.
Always extend your mileage with easy miles. If your body just won't do it, then get on the bike.
Right. So it brings me to another point. So my friend Ginger, for example, I told you, like, she runs a lot less than I ran, but then she goes out there and like has these like incredible races. Um, so I found out why, because she, and I should have known this, she swims and she's an excellent swimmer.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So much so that I never bothered to look at this, but she's like in training. She swims quite a bit, and
Mm-hmm.
she's part of like a not a swim team, but she trains with other women. She's part of this group of women, and they train with a coach.
Mm-hmm.
So she swims twice a week. And I looked at her times once, like I just Googled, like, what's a good time? She's just like an excellent, like, she must have like this super huge aerobic, like, so that's why.
Well, exactly, because she's building that aerobic
She
capability
must
through the
have
swimming.
this, like, yeah, massive aerobic engine. It's because of all her swimming. She's an excellent
Plus,
swimmer. I mean,
plus
she is like phenomenal.
swimming also gives you huge advantages because the lack of gravitational resistance when you're swimming allows you to extend your muscles more, which means you're building strength from full elongation. Because just like when you're strength training, if you're it's very important to do it with good form, because if you're getting full extension of your muscles when you're strength training or when you're swimming, it comes really easily. You're building strength way faster and more effectively. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, her speed is not coming from nowhere. You just found out
Yeah,
the
I was
secret
like, how
sauce.
can she? She was like, she must be like so. I mean, not obviously she's talented, but it's it's all the swimming she does. It's
Yeah. So
yeah,
yeah, I mean the big thing is too, like when you reach a point, and we haven't had the discussion in private yet, Susie, so I'm not going to try to make it happen here, but just to let everybody know, Susie and I will be discussing her future training to follow up on whatever happens at the Wineglass Marathon. And, you know, some of that, if I'm involved in that training, will involve of course, the extension of more weekly mileage. I know you've said to me on several occasions, Susie, that generally you've found that sort of the mid 50s miles per week is kind of like traditionally what you have found is your limit, where your body starts breaking down and not being able to handle that. The one thing I want you to come away with is I guarantee that's no longer true for you,
probably not.
because you are
I would
now
agree.
stronger. Your whole body is stronger in every way now. So we will try to push that if we work together. Barring that, the first thing I would tell you to do is, if we do some experimenting in the early days of a next training cycle and you're just dying, we just can't push it to say 60 miles right now yet, that would be the first place I go with you. Is, do you have a stationary bike? Do you have a road bike? Let's start supplementing your training with very low impact, very low gravitational resistance type of exercises like cycling.
Right. I wouldn't. I mean, I like running though, so that would be my preference. I think.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think that, like I said, we would sort of try to build you. You're maxing out at 53 miles in this training cycle. The next marathon training cycle, whenever that comes, whether that's after you have some fun with some 5Ks, 10Ks, whatever it is that kind of gets you charged up again. Next time you go back to a marathon training cycle, I'd like to get you peaking around 60 miles. And that little bit of it, doing that for 1 week would make no difference to
Right.
your next PR goal. But over 6 to 8 weeks, if you're consistently between 50 and 60 miles, as opposed to this time where we're just kind of touching on going over 50 miles, if your next 18-week marathon training cycle has 6, 8, maybe 10 weeks where you're between 50 and 60 and you touch 60 once and then we bring it back down a little bit before the taper, that's not going to have a minor effect. That's going to get you, whatever you run at Wineglass, I would expect that extra 10 miles of kind of weekly training over the middle of that to deliver another 12 or 15 minutes off of your PR time. Like it's just at first your PRs take massive chunks of time. Same thing
Right.
happened to me as I increased my mileage. I ran my first marathon in a 3:26. My next one was a 3:17, then a 3:03, then a 3:02, then a 2:59, 2:55, back to a 2:57, down to a 2:52. So as you can see there, I'm not trying to show off my times here. I'm trying to just kind of delineate, show that you make massive gains at first, just with small, little, relatively small mileage increases.
Right.
And that
Stack
starts
that
to
over
taper
time.
down over
Right.
time because you're starting to reach what your body is truly, truly capable of. But yeah, I mean, you're still at the point, Susie, where, if you run a 4:20 at Wineglass, somewhere in that range, a couple of minutes on either side, and then we push you to 60 miles for the next training block, I really seriously, at that point, BQ is there. Like I would really fully, completely expect to see a BQ at that point.
Okay, very cool. So this actually ties back to a question I got. I got this question this morning on the YouTube channel. So Lee Annie is asking, I was wondering how your Garmin race predictor time compares to the other websites you mentioned in your last couple of videos. So I think Garmin actually, I went up my VO2 max with today's run, even though it was not a good run, actually. So I think Garmin says now 3 hours. Garmin is on steroids. I think it's at 240, actually, 340, sorry,
Okay.
for a marathon. Marathon, this morning I checked it, it said 356, which is very
Cool.
close to the 355.
And I think
And
that's very much because you have been, because of where you are in your training cycle right now, where all the really intense stuff is kind of pushing
the speed.
it's pushing up your overall running capabilities really quickly. We're in that bubble zone right now where things get really intense, and that's why the last 2 miles couldn't happen today, is because you've been pushing so hard so consistently for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and we've just found your exhaustion point. So
Yeah. Well, tomorrow will be better. And
well,
tomorrow is
exactly, you've
nothing
got a
anyway.
day
So.
off to kind of chill and kind of get your body back into stasis, and then we'll go right after it again.
And then Ranalize actually, it's this morning it's at 4, I think it was 4:23. So Ranalize puts more, all these calculators, I think Garmin is probably the less accurate one because it's always kind of in the same range. No matter how much I run, it's always kind of there, like 3 hours 45, 3 hours 50. Now it's saying 3 hours 40. That's not possible because when you're not training, it should go way up, and it doesn't. So I don't think it's a very good calculator. But both Marathon and Ranalize factor in all your training data from Strava. So you sync them up with Strava, and then the
Oh, see,
algorithms have
much
different.
smarter. Yeah,
But they take in, Marathon takes the last 8 weeks of training.
there you go.
Ranalize takes the last 6 months of training.
Wow,
So
that's a little
I
bit
think
too
it's
much.
probably
That's
a
a little
better
bit too
prediction.
wide of net.
But it's probably a better prediction. So it tracks over time, like your heart rate, which Marathon doesn't factor in your heart rate. That's it's just factoring how many miles and at what speed. And then projects, okay, if you're running all your miles on average, I think it was 10:48 on average, my miles, you should run a marathon in like 9-minute miles. It's not really that. I mean, it is what it is. But Ranalize actually factors in like the variety of your runs. If they're very the monotony of your runs, like they're always the
The same.
same paces, the same length, the same like how many miles per week. So it takes more information into account.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
been going down. Like in the last 4 weeks, it's gone down from like 457, I think it was. And now it's like 423, I think it was this morning. So
Yeah, because it's only because of your polarized training, it's starting to see the upper limits of what you're capable of. You
right.
know, like right now, exactly along the same lines. When I look at, this is a Koros, but when I never look at, I'm much more of a how do you feel type of coach than a stats coach. Stats are important as a guidepost, but on a day-to-day basis, I'm much more interested in how I or my clients feel to guide what the next month is going to look like. And because I'm at the early stages of a half marathon cycle myself, I'm not really pushing the upper limits of what my speed capabilities are. So the numbers that the Koros is telling me of like my race predictor times are like an hour behind what I know I can do. Because it doesn't have any examples of me flying around the track. So
Right. Doesn't have enough information.
Exactly.
Right. I don't know. I went on Reddit And a lot of people were talking about both marathon and Runalyze. And a lot of people said that their marathon times actually fell like in between both. Like they were tracking with
Oh
both.
wow. Okay.
And they were like, I was faster than Runalyze, but slower than marathon. So it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, if I'm in between, I'm happy, like, yeah. I mean, if I have a good day, I could have a good show if it's not too hot. Even if it's raining or windy, that doesn't really like I've done well in races with like wind and rain and
Yeah. As long
heat
as half
hits
of it is
me
a
harder.
tailwind, then you're all right.
Heat usually hits me harder, but the wind doesn't bother me that much or the
Yeah. As
cold
long as it's not
weather.
in your face the whole time, then as long as it
Even if
averages
it's on
out.
my face, it's well, it's which is weird because I hate wind. Like in regular life, I hate wind. But if I'm racing, it's like okay, whatever, But heat bothers me a lot more. So if it's not a
Oh
hot
yeah.
day,
Because there's nothing you can do about heat. Like it doesn't matter how badly you want something. It doesn't. Heat physiologically puts the brakes on your body's ability to operate efficiently. So it doesn't matter how badly you want it, how hard you work. You could fire every muscle fiber with every step for as long as you could possibly make yourself last. And it doesn't matter because your body is working against that. Your body is more worried about keeping your body core temperature where it needs to be. And it's diverting the blood away from your working muscles to your core to try to cool you. And you can't. It doesn't matter how hard you work. If it's hot, you're doomed. There's no way to run fast in the heat.
right, we'll see. It's
What it comes down to, Susie, as far as I'm concerned, is getting at this point, barring something catastrophic in the next 2 weeks of training, where we're going to be pushing you hard, but keeping it within the limits of reality. Today with today's run kind of said we're going to back off. I'm going to rework next week's training so that it's easier the first couple of days of the week than we originally thought it was going to be, because I want to see you come back. I want your body to have an opportunity to heal itself. And then it'll ease back into the way things should be for the last couple of weeks of hard training. But I think this whole race, to get the results that your body is absolutely in good enough shape to achieve, is going to come down to that 3 weeks of taper. And I don't just mean about making sure we're bringing the mileage down and the intensity, the amount of intensity down. It's about the hydration, the sleep, the nutrition. If we stay on point with that stuff, I promise you a freaking awesome day. I'm not hyping you. As long as we stick to the plan, the race day plan, I'll run the numbers. I'll crunch them through all the graphs that Jack Daniels provides in his super awesome book, to make sure that we're being realistic, and we'll hammer out a pacing plan for the race. And we're lucky because Wineglass has an incredibly awesome profile.
Someone told me there was someone on Instagram who posted who's run this marathon a couple of times, and he said the first portion it's a little hilly. He's like, you're lucky because after like mile 9, it's downhill.
Yeah,
But the first 9 miles are there's rolling hills. So
yeah, but yeah, as far as I've seen those rollers, we're talking about like 2-3% grade and not very big.
I can
They
do
don't
that.
last
Like
long.
that's
So
the grade I have around here in my yeah.
yeah, so I mean, it's the kind of thing where it should leave you in a place where it feels good to have that shifting in elevation, because like you said, it's over before even the first half of the race is ready to go, and then from there on you've got that sort of 1.5% downgrade. It's not steep enough where you have to put the brakes on as you're running. It's just enough to make it feel pretty effortless. So
Easier,
um,
yeah. And
yeah.
there's if you do it on the treadmill, you run much faster. Like I have actually done it on the treadmill. It's like let's do 1% negative, and you're flying.
Oh, absolutely. It's amazing. And the great thing is, so long as we are so long as we set your race plan to kind of take into account that shifting elevation in the first 9 miles, which we will, of course, I want you to go out slow. We're going to go out, not that these are necessarily the final numbers, but just to have something to talk about here. If you go out at 10:15 pace for the first 3 miles, I don't care how good you feel. You just force yourself to stay on 10:15. Don't let yourself go slower than like 10:20s. Keep it in that little tiny window. Bring it down to like 10:05s for while you're going through the rollers. And the huge advantage you'll have is when you come out of those little uphill rollers, the same amount of effort will suddenly bring your pace down without you having to work any harder. And I want you to just stay there. Just no matter how good you feel, stay there until like mile 15, 16. And then I say, if you're feeling good enough at mile 16, bring it up a little bit. I mean, I'm talking 5 seconds per mile faster, and don't let you, so that by the time you get to mile 21, if you're still feeling good, nail it. Like, crank it. Do everything you can. And I would love to see you. This is almost the total opposite of what we were talking about at the half marathon. Normally, I tell runners, I would rather have you finish way slower than you expected to run, but as long as you can tell me I gave it everything I had. With you this time, I want to be so conservative on the opening of the race that if you feel great when you're crossing the finish line, it's going to it won't be because you didn't try hard enough. It's going to be because I purposefully put the brakes on you in the beginning, because I think we knew fairly early on that this was not going to be the 3:55 race. But if we can use this race as a building block and prove, if you cross that finish line at Wineglass feeling amazing, and you run just say a 4:20, that's going to give us everything we need to know that we can be way more aggressive next time around and get that BQ. If the reason you will not have squeezed every second out of Wineglass that could have possibly been there is because I purposefully want to hold you back in the beginning. Because there's a lot more to be learned from. This is a stepping stone.
Right.
This is almost a way for us to gauge how to go after the one that truly will be the BQ.
And I think there's a lot to be said for controlling everything you can control and just like giving it like a good effort. Marathons are very hard. So I think it's good not to have a little bit of experience also pushing yourself. Not that
Absolutely.
again, like I pushed myself before, but
Oh yeah, and keep in
you
mind, when
have
I
to
say
like
when you've crossed the finish
have that
line feeling
experience.
good, you're not going to feel good. But I want you to feel like, yeah, that was hard. That was hard, but I never felt like desperate to just want to stop. You know what I mean? Like, that's a well-run marathon never means, yeah, let's go run 10 more. You know what I mean? It's always, yeah, I feel pretty bad, but even the most desperate moments in those later miles feel like you're running within yourself. You're still having to play all the games to stop the panic and to be able to maintain your pace. But you're never gonna reach a point, I hope, in Wineglass where you are just, oh God, I'd give anything to make this pain stop. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a controlled discomfort is the worst I want it to get for you in Wineglass.
Okay. Cool. Deal.
Yeah,
And we've been at this for 2 hours and 15 minutes. So I don't know. We have a lot of people still on. I don't know if they're the
well, that's
same people
awesome.
who were here at the
Hopefully,
beginning.
hopefully it's been an interesting conversation for people to listen to. Cool.
So if you guys have any questions, get them in within the next minute because I think we're gonna continue with our day. It's actually 5:15. It's incredible. I mean, time flew by.
Yeah, and if anybody who's watching or watches after the fact, if you come up with questions after we're done talking, just get them to Susie, and I'm sure if there's
No,
anything I can
something
answer.
better. Go to Paul's channel, Dev Runner, here on YouTube.
Oh,
Just go to his
thank you.
channel and write him there
Yeah,
or
I
on
mean
Instagram.
anybody who wants to email me or whatever, like if you've got questions about running, I love this stuff. So please, yeah, get in touch. I'd be more than happy to answer you.
Paul geeks out.
I love it.
That's why we like you so much.
I appreciate it.
So Heather's saying, be listening while cooking and entertaining the 6-year-old. Awesome. Hopefully your 6-year-old was also being entertained by by us. And April saying this has been an awesome way to spend a Sunday afternoon. Y'all are welcome.
Thank
You're
you.
all y'all are awesome. Thank you for being here, guys.
Yeah, thank you, and Susie, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Go to his channel, subscribe to Paul's, it's Dev Runner, and his website is www.devrunnercoaching.com.
There you go.
I put the link in the description. I don't know if it's there actually.
Okay, cool. Well, it's easy to find.
Okay, guys, thank you for being here, spending Sunday afternoon with us.
Cool. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye bye.